What's up, YouTube? Hope everything is well. Today I have an amazing guest. I have Seth with me. Seth, it's a pleasure to have you on the Talking Cards podcast. For people that may not know Seth, and you will present yourself, but Seth is a new content creator in the space, and I was watching a couple of your videos, in particular an interview you did with James, also a good friend of the channel, and I thought you actually had great points. I really want to have this conversation with you today because I guess we can, for me, sometimes it's very important to have a different perspective from someone that is actually appearing right now on the market, especially even on the content creation side. And yeah, if for viewers that may not know you, and I will give all the links below the video, and I recommend my viewers to support you, but say something for people that, again, may not know you.
Sure. Well, yeah, first of all, thanks for having me on the podcast. Been a big fan of your videos for a while since I got into the market. Yeah, my name's Seth. I started a channel called Soccer Card Corner about 3 months ago. And I've been in the sports card market for a couple of years, mostly starting in basketball and football, ultra modern, American football, that is. And have always loved soccer, eventually found myself getting more and more interested in the soccer card market. And when I got here, I found a lot of things very different and confusing compared to the other sports card markets. And I thought, what better way to kind of help myself and maybe others in my shoes learn than to start creating content. And so, yeah, my content is mostly kind of, random thoughts and just deeper dives into more, I'll call it like theory-based investing stuff. I have a background in finance and accounting, but then I'm also doing more of like a bankroll challenge, trying to turn an initial investment into a grail card. So trying to document kind of both of those simultaneously.
Oh yeah, I was watching, just to prepare the podcast a little bit better for today, I was watching a couple of your videos, and it's very fun to see that challenger that you have to I believe is a PSA 8 Messi 7-1Bs, right? You said, I believe at one point PSA 8, PSA 9. But yeah, and you, for people that may not know, and again, I will recommend people checking your channel, you are basically trying to turn a 1K bank into a potentially 6, 7, 8K, whatever it takes to buy a Messi 7-1B's PSA 8. Actually, I have a question related with this. So the way this works, Seth, and I believe you know how the podcast goes, I have 5 questions for you. You also end up bringing 5 questions for me, so we go back and forth. At the start is basically just quick thoughts, then we go back and have a longer conversation. Can I start with this, Seth?
Sure.
Okay. So question number 1. You have been on the YouTube create space for the soccer card market in the last 3 months. What is the thing that ended up surprising you the most in this journey of content creation?
Yeah, I mean, I guess to kind of answer it quickly, I think it's one, just how much I didn't know about content creation was like the first thing. And then related to that, just over time, how you sort of get better at different things, one by one, video by video, making small improvements over time.
Okay, good. Then again, now you ask me your first question and we go back and forth.
Yeah, so I guess related to that, if you were to start a YouTube channel today, I know you've had your channel for a while, but if you were to start it today, kind of knowing what you know about obviously content creation and just the soccer card market, what, if anything, would you do differently than what you did kind of when you first started?
Okay, so the thing is, my channel is not even that old if you put in perspective. Is not even two years old. But that's a great question. It's a very difficult one to answer, being honest. But my first thought was probably creating my Discord earlier. I started my Discord a couple of months ago, but if I knew what I know today, when I started my channel, I would automatically promote my Discord because I think it's such an amazing place to learn, such an amazing place to basically even network with people. And we are close to 800 members, but again, I suspect if I created the Discord channel 1 year ago, or basically when I started the channel, I believe we could be around 2000. So there is a big difference. I regret not going in more directions, if that makes sense. But yeah, that will be my short answer. I also have a couple of things that I would change, but I would save for a longer conversation on this topic. So, Seth,
Cool.
question number 2 for you, and this is a fun one. Modern, pre-modern, and vintage. Buy one, sell one, hold one. In a super macro perspective, of course, there is certain things we love in modern, others in pre-modern, but if you had to choose the three markets, how it goes. Hey guys, quick pause on the video. Hope you are enjoying this talk with Seth, and if that's the case, leave a like right now or at the end of the video. I would be very thankful for that. And again, it's the best way to show support. A couple of things. The first one is, if you like my content on YouTube, there is a very likely scenario you probably like my Patreon, even if you are not there. I put a lot of content there, sometimes more content than I put on YouTube in a weekly basis. So there is a Q&A every Wednesday and the extra audio that you also can call a podcast on Saturday. Anyone joining the Patreon will be able to ask me questions for the next Q&A, but you also have access to all the old content. So if you join right now, the amount of content there is just insane. I'm talking about more than 60 videos and 60 extra audios. Crazy stuff. If you love the content on YouTube, you probably will love the content on Patreon. You need to pay around $10. I try to provide a lot of value there to justify that. And again, if $10 is a lot of money to you, don't feel pressure to join the Patreon, because at the end of the day, there is always free content on YouTube. It's just some exclusive content for people that also want to support the channel. One thing that is totally free is actually my Discord server. We are more than 700 members. At the time you see this video, maybe even 800 members, but the point is quite obvious. We are growing super fast. And this shows the strength of the community, and also the soccer card market is in, I would say, a small boom, since macroeconomics are bad. But at the end of the day, if you love the soccer card market, if you want to learn more, if you want to share your perspective and learn from others, joining the Discord is something you need to do today. There is nowhere on that amazing place to learn and share. Both communities, I will leave the link below the video. Like I said, the Patreon is $10. It's a good way to support the channel. That's a lot of money. Stay away. But the Discord is totally free, so at least that consider to join. Let's continue with the conversation.
I don't want to. I hope none of these are hot takes. Let's see. I would buy vintage. I would hold pre-modern, and I would sell modern.
Okay, fair. Yeah, again, we go back and you explain your thoughts on that.
Cool. So my next question is, so I did a video where I talked about like price catalysts, and it was definitely framed more from the American side, or me being an American and coming from the American market. I'm just kind of curious, you're based in Europe. There are some differences between the European market and the American market. When you think about price catalysts and like what would really, sort of move the market, at least in Europe, what do you think, is one or maybe two of like the biggest price catalysts in your opinion?
That's a difficult one again. The way I look at things is like this. You guys have the product, but don't have the people. We have the people, but we don't have the product. And this goes into the logic of supply versus demand. You guys have the supply and the demand at the same time, but we have more potentially demand than the United States of America. So I would say is all about education, and education starts with awareness. We need to make people aware. To be fair, Europeans are getting much better at this. The amount of European collectors I have seen on the market that follow on my Instagram, on my YouTube, on my Discord, etc., have been growing quite a lot. It's not only from Europe, it's also from Asia and even South America, for example. But I believe the potential of soccer, we talk about this all the time in this channel, to be fair, that we have the international potential like nothing else. And I honestly believe in that quite a lot. So basically, education slash awareness is the catalyst. Is a difficult one to be fair with you. It's not like something that is super obvious. For example, in America, World Cup could be a huge catalyst to make the soccer card market go. In Europe, not saying that that's also relevant, of course, but is more complex than that, basically.
Got it. That makes sense.
So, question number 3. Let me actually put the questions there. Just a second. I know you are trying to turn a 1K investment in a PSA 8 / PSA 9 Messi 7 on Bs. I believe you'll get there, by the way. But after that, what's next? Do you have an area or player that you want to collect more, or is basically Messi the player that you want to collect the most?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I picked Messi for this challenge mostly because he's pretty, universally well known, both in terms of historical greatness, but obviously he's still playing today. He's very, visible soccer athlete. I also know that the 71 Biz is, one of the more iconic soccer cards. And so I thought it was just something that anybody watching or interested in soccer cards could identify with. I think, if I could do it, that would be awesome. When I think about players or cards that I really get excited about, obviously at the top, there's like the Pele Alifa, right? Which is a much different challenge than a Messi 71 Biz. I really like Johan Cruyff. I've really been picking up a lot of, some of his older stuff, and, maybe would try to do the next challenge around maybe one of his rare, earlier cards or rookies.
Okay, fair. Great choice, in my opinion.
All right. My next question is, what is, I know you often do predictions on your channel of like looking, 12 months ahead. What's one prediction that you have right now for the soccer card market over the next, we'll call it 6, 12, 18 months, kind of medium term, that you feel the most confident in?
Okay. Just for fun, of course. But I believe in 12 months from now, the collector base for vintage and pre-modern will be stronger. I'm not sure if it will be 2x, 3x, or 10%. That's impossible to predict. But one thing that seems very obvious for me in the soccer card market is the true collectors, and I hope people do not get offended by this, are in vintage and pre-modern. And by the way, with this prediction, I'm not saying prices will be higher, because I actually believe right now prices, not values, but prices are more related with the macroeconomic that we have right now in the world. And let's be real, is not looking that great. At least, again, I know the sentiment on the market can change quite fast, but being realistic, I think there is possible difficult times ahead of us. That being said, I still believe in terms of collector base, we will keep growing, even if the market in general shrinks, because the first people leaving are not collectors, they are flippers, people that are trying to make quick money. But true collectors, I believe, will keep increasing in markets like vintage, like pre-modern. And I'm saying this because I guess I could say this, but we go back to this topic. But I'm saying this because I played Magic for 20 years, and I remember difficult times in the world, in the more macroeconomic aspect. But collectors always, the true collectors, and this could be a video alone, the concept of a true collector, but people that really care about the market will stay, may not buying as much, but will still engage and bring more people that share the same passion, basically. So
yeah, cool.
All right, so the question number 4, actually similar to a question you end up asking me. In one of your latest videos, you end up talking about catalysts in the soccer card market, a topic that I also explored in the past in this channel. In the next 2-3 years, up to you, what are the 2 or 3 big catalysts you see impacting the soccer card market?
Yeah, so I guess I'll answer this from maybe 2 angles. So one, there is obviously demand catalysts, like you kind of touched on, like the supply versus the demand. I think, one potential that I did talk about in the video, but I think just more broadly is it kind of hinges on the success of the US men's national team. So the more that their players get exposure in Europe in terms of the Bundesliga or the Premier League, there's have a lot of players that are actually playing good minutes. Ironically, Christian Pulisic is not one of those players. But also their success in, a major tournament like the World Cup, for example. I've seen even in other World Cups in the US, even when the team is not very good, even for that month, it's a very popular event. People are, packing sports bars and watching the matches. So I think any sort of success from that group of players in the near term, I think could be a big catalyst for demand. And then on the supply side, I am pretty confident that one of the big catalysts between, whether it's Panini or Fanatics and Topps going forward, I think there's going to be quite a bit, and we're already seeing it, there's going to be quite a bit of supply of new sets, new ultra-modern cards. And so how those two dynamics will kind of play out against one another, I think will be interesting to see. But I do think there will be more demand, and I also do think there will be a lot more supply.
No, I would agree in general with that. So my last question for you, no, actually, is your turn. And I'm sorry, I actually thought this was mine again.
Oh, all right. Yeah. So this is hopefully kind of a fun one, hopefully not too hard. So out of all the cards in your collection that you would consider like grail cards that you don't ever plan to sell, if you had to sell one, which one would it be and why?
That's a bit tricky. Okay, the first card, and I will go with that ended up coming to my mind was my Ronaldinho, the 99 sticker. The reason I'm saying Ronaldinho is actually my favorite player, but for some reason, not for some reason, I actually explained this a lot of times on my channel, but I don't trust the rarity I don't trust the way we look at rarity for stickers that come from Brazil. I think the awareness is still quite low there. And I think it's a sticker that I can get surprised in a negative way in terms of pop reports. So if I'm forced to sell, I would let that go because I suspect I can have another decent entry point in the future for that sticker. That being said, I just have one. And I don't like to sell cards that I don't have duplicates, especially cards that I like that Ronaldinho 99. So another good choice could be, I don't know, I asked a sticker for Messi that I have a couple, maybe a Maradona disc, I have two, so something around that. But the first thought was actually Ronaldinho 99, to be honest with you. So
nice.
Question number 5 is always the same question for every person that comes to the channel. Is your hot take and popular opinion on the market? Basically, say whatever you want that you believe people may not agree with you.
So I thought about what I wanted to say for this one. So I think one of my hot takes, just because I have a soft spot in my heart for these cards, is I think that Mosaic Genesis parallels are one of the most underrated parallels in the soccer card market. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that maybe we can dive into later, but that's one of my hot takes that I don't think a lot of people appreciate them as much as they should.
Okay. I don't have any particular opinion on that, to be honest with you. I believe I know Mosaic, but I'm not even sure if I know the card, the specific. Is that an insert? Is what?
It's just like a parallel. It's like a base parallel.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure they are only found in retail format and not hobby, which I think is part of the reason why they're underappreciated.
Okay, fair. Again, we go back and you can explain a little bit better why.
Sure. All right, my last question. In your opinion, I know PSA is in the process or maybe has already opened up a European office. What do you think is going to be the biggest impact on the soccer card market of PSA having more of a local presence in Europe?
So this is a topic that actually I've been thinking more and more lately, because I believe in general, just very, very macro right now, I think it's a good thing. But I also think we should be prepared for some bad side, some bad size, bad side, if that makes sense. Let's start with this. I actually believe it will depend a lot how PSA will approach the European market. Because yes, they will open a grading office, all good. For sure, there will be some demand at the beginning, but they need to invest in the European region. I mean, cards will not go to PSA if they don't promote the hobby, if they need to educate the market. So this is actually related with one question you had for me, I believe was the question number 2, that is about catalysts. PSA can be one that helps education. So that's something that I hope PSA understands, because we are not in a boom cycle anymore. Even right now, and I don't want to be too negative, we know that PSA is flipping cards quite fast. So even the backlog they expected for 3-6 months seems like it's 2 months right now. So I'm talking about the new backlog. I know they still have a couple of the old ones. But basically, I'm not sure when, maybe PSA is different, but even the other grading companies will get cards, because this will be quite difficult. I was 1 year ago, I was saying that there is a chance, because in other markets, when we see manias like this, there is a chance that PSA, BGS, not the case to be fair, but PSA, SEC, they probably overshoot a bit, that they think, okay, this is the market we have, we need to go with this market. But I think the market is not the same, not even close. And I hope I'm wrong, but I believe they will realize that a lot. But just to finish my thoughts on this, the bad side of the PSA UK, and like I said, in general, is a very good thing. I think will be stickers, especially in pre-modern too. But even vintage, I think people need to be careful. But specific in pre-modern, Merlin stickers, maybe some World Cup stickers, people need to be a little bit careful, because most of them are conditioned rarity, not any type of true rarity. But even conditioned rarity can get tricky for a moment, if I had to predict. So yeah, that's my take, honestly.
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense.
So we go back to the question number 1, and then we can talk a little bit more. Basically, I was asking you what ended up surprising you the most in the last 3 months since you started your channel. So expand a bit more on that.
Yeah, I think when I first started, it's the beautiful thing about YouTube or about making content is all you really need is a phone. You don't really need anything fancy, but when you start, you kind of realize just how much better things can be if you have a microphone, or if you have like a certain light setup or whatever, right? And even just editing and creating videos, I think was a learning experience, just from a standpoint of you can record yourself, but then get your editing, and then it's like, do you record yourself with video and like a presentation? There's like a lot of things like that. And so it's just been like a learning experience. And the one thing I will say that I found really cool about it is, I just told myself I'm going to start making videos, and the first like 20 are just going to be terrible. And that's fine, because then hopefully the next 20 will be better. And it's been cool just seeing the comments that people have provided on videos, or obviously, yourself reaching out and me being able to talk with James a few weeks ago. It's just been cool to see like the broader community kind of reach out and support, even though it's like, okay, clearly I've just started a month or a couple months ago, and I'm still very much learning. It's been cool to kind of see the other people in the space kind of support and encourage and things like that.
No, yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess I remember when I started, I also was not sure. For me, it was not about knowledge, because I knew I was good, to be fair with you. But the thing was my English, and still is probably the biggest complex I have when recording videos, because I know, I mean, it's not perfect by any means. But I believe actually got a little bit better, because if I'm forcing constant to talking English, it's normal to get better at this. But I still struggle from time to time. So, but I'm always saying this: if anyone wants to start creating content, please do it. I mean, we need more. I mean, we don't need less. We need more in the soccer card market. We need people like you. We need people like me. We need more European collectors, even if the English is even worse than mine. Do it. I mean, sometimes people just want content. To be fair, people want different content, and I think you are doing something different. For example, with that bankroll challenger, and I think that's great, honestly. So. Yeah, and that's the big thing for me. Is just start. Most people, I know people, for example, that they have big plans to make content, but they always delay. I mean, just do it. And you need to start somewhere. The first video will not be perfect. The second will probably even be even worse, but over time things will get much better. Watching my first videos today, and a couple of them are not listed anymore, by the way, but I cringe. I mean, I think, oh man, I was really so almost insecure, that I was not being myself. Right now I feel much comfortable. For example, if even when I started the podcast, was not my first time showing my face, but was one of the first times that I was not sure how people would react, etc. But people in general are quite nice. Yes, there is 1% or even less that will say something that you don't like, but that's life, basically, at the end of the day. So
Yeah, no, and I think you hit on a really good point on like finding something that's different or finding something that works for you, because I think at least the channels that I find myself the most drawn to, or like the people that I'll subscribe to and watch often, are the people that I can tell are authentic and are being themselves and are obviously very passionate about the content that they're talking about. It's not somebody trying to do something that somebody else is doing because they think that'll work, that's what's going to work. So I definitely think, yeah, we definitely need more. And I think the more different angles and different personalities that we have, I think, the better off we'll all be.
no, yeah, I agree with that. There is a lot of negativity, especially when the market is facing a bearish trend about content creators. That I don't subscribe to that at all. Being honest with you, yes, content creators are amazing when things are going up, but I think they are even more important when things are going down. I mean, I guess we can talk about this. For example, when the sports card investor makes a video about soccer, even if you go to the comments, there is people criticizing, you should not be talking about soccer, you don't know soccer. Honestly, I think quite the opposite. I think, yeah, do more videos about soccer. That's actually great. Even though certain takes are not perfect, but guess what? My takes are also not perfect. The most important thing, to certain level, of course, is spread awareness, and people over time, okay, you know what? Maybe modern is not for me. Maybe vintage is not for me. Maybe I like to collect just one player. People find the journey over time, but they need to get introduced some way. And yeah, basically, content creators a lot of times are the reason people enter certain area of the card hobby. In this case, soccer cards.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think this is your turn, right?
Yeah, let's see. What was my first question? Oh, yeah, just talking about if you were going to start a YouTube channel, what would you do differently, and kind of how would you, what if anything would you do differently than maybe what you did?
So, like I said, the first thing that came to my mind was my Discord channel, because when I said starting at the beginning, maybe not the first videos, to be fair, because no one would join my Discord, but at one point I was already getting a good amount of views for the market we have, which is still quite small, to be fair, and I should have started promoting that, because communities make markets, and I think my Discord, the vintage Discord, etc., we can actually educate a lot of people in certain area. More is more. I'm sorry, more focused in pre-modern, but I wish I started a little bit earlier. And I would actually add another thing that I just thought right now. I would also started my podcast soon, because for a long time I made videos on basically presentations from my points, and I believe those type of videos are also quite important. But I also feel that your fans that really care about you, and saying fans in such small communities are a bit weird, to be fair with you, but they like this type of content, 1 hour content, 2 hour content. If you really are engaging with the market, at least this is my perspective, maybe people disagree, but you like this type of content. Look, I said this a couple of times on my Patreon community. If I really wanted to grow my channel, to grow everything around my channel, Discord, etc., I would start making videos about ultra modern, because let's be real, that's where you can get a lot of views. But I think that's also short vision, you know. I could be wrong on this, but the perspective I have about my viewers is they really care about me. They really care about the community, because I try to make a product that don't goes to the devil side, if that makes sense. I'm joking with ultramodern, but you get the point. I think long run, longer conversations, staying true to my beliefs, that is more about pre-modern and also vintage, is something that I hope to keep believing, first of all, and doing. That's why I said I would also love to start to have started my podcast a little bit earlier, because this type of content is the type of content that people can actually learn a lot, in my opinion.
Got it. Yeah, it sounds like maybe when you started, it was maybe, you know, the goal was like education and providing, you know, expertise, and now that knowing what you know now, it's maybe more, it sounds like it's maybe more about like community building and like bringing more people into the circle.
Yeah, so when I started, the thing was like this. Again, I repeat myself on this topic, but 99% of what I know about the card market, not about soccer cards, but the card market, I got from Magic the Gathering and other TCGs I played. So I thought, you know what, I know a lot of stuff that people are not talking about. Let's start talking about the condition rares. Let's start talking about different eras. I don't want to push this idea, but the reality is I end up influencing even a lot of narratives you see in the market about pre-modern, etc. And I thought that was quite important. But I also remember after, I would say 1 year, I was like, you know what, I have nothing to say anymore. I said basically everything. Of course, there is always topics that come, but in general, I thought, you know what, at one point I was making 1 video a day. So of course, if you do 1 video a day, at one point you have no topics. And that ended up happening to me. To be fair, this podcast was something great that ended up giving me more life in YouTube, in the sense that, oh, now, okay, now I can have a Seth, James, I can bring people that, you know what, people, they know what I believe. Let's see what other people believe. But actually I end up losing focus a bit now. But basically, my conclusion on this is, I regret not making my Discord and my podcast a little bit earlier, but everything is related in the sense that it's building a community, is actually having fans that understand what I'm actually doing. Not saying that in the past that was not the case, because I actually believe what people, even at the time, ended up supporting me quite a lot. But right now, I think I have my direction on YouTube much clearer.
Awesome. I love that.
So the question number 1 for you was modern, pre-modern, and vintage. Buy one, sell one, hold one. You said sell modern, buy vintage, and hold pre-modern. Well, let's start with modern. Why sell modern?
Yeah, so it kind of goes back to maybe what I talked about with some of the catalysts, where I think there's a lot of great modern cards. I just think that modern is good for things like prospecting, and, you know, I guess what I'm saying is there's a lot of uncertainty with a lot of modern cards. So even if you're buying players that you think are the best modern players, so Mbappe, Haaland, although he looks like the Terminator now, so maybe he's not a good example anymore, but it's hard to say what legacy these players will have 20, 30 years from now. And even if they end up becoming the greatest players of all time, between now and then, I think there will be kind of what you mentioned with your, you know, what grail card you would sell. I think there will be other entry points for good cards of these players that we can get between now and that time. Whereas I think there will also be plenty of good selling points, whether it's performance related or, you know, a hype cycle or, you know, something like that. I think there will just be enough selling points of modern cards or players or any specific modern player that it just makes it more of an easy thing to sell in the short term and then get back into later on.
No, for sure. The thing about modern, and I would love to know also your opinion on this, is you end up talking about Haaland and Mbappe. And I think we all agree at this point. I would say Vinicius Junior is also playing very well, but these two guys, the Haaland and Mbappe, are the ones that we suspect can be the next Ballon d'Or winners. That being said, there is still a scenario that none of them end up going to the level most people expect. I'm not trying to be a doomer on this, but that scenario is actually quite real. I would say in terms of odds, probably will be likely, honestly. The thing with modern is short term, even mid term, I think people can find opportunity if they know how to navigate the market. But let's bring a couple of other names. Havertz, for example, Mason Mount. I don't know. I could name a couple. Anthony, for another good example. Sure, there will be one guy that will have a career that we are not probably expecting, but a lot of these guys will not make it. And I think people need to be aware. Not make it in the sense that I believe Havertz could be an amazing player at Chelsea, who could be an important player for Germany. But think about Thomas Muller. People do not care about. Do not care. Is a strong take, to be fair, but they don't care that much for Thomas Muller, and the most likely scenario is Havertz will not even come close to Thomas Muller in terms of greatness. So we all want to get the next GOAT, to the next Cristiano Ronaldo, but there is also a scenario that the next Cristiano Ronaldo or Messi is not alive at this point, or is in Brazil playing in a random league, and we'll know about him in 2-3 years. So just be careful is always my advice about modern. I understand it's very fun. For example, I bought the Vinicius Junior rookie card, and now when I watch Real Madrid, I have something to okay, see my investment is going up, and I understand that is very related with gambling. To be fair, there is a strong dopamine effect when you have money on the game, but long run, please, people, be careful. I mean, do your own research. I'm not trying to provide any type of financial advice. But the reality is most of these guys, maybe Haaland and Mbappe are different, but most of these guys will not go to the level that we are pricing in most of cards, that especially rookie cards, low number stuff, etc.
Yeah, I think that's the key. What you just said there really quick is what's priced into some of these cards. It's like, I would love to buy a lot of these cards, but you look at some of the prices and you really dig deep and you compare them to either other players or other eras, and it's like, man, what are the expectations built into this player to have this card selling for? I mean, Pulisic cards in the US is probably one of the best examples. Like, yeah, he's, you know, promising. I don't think anybody would consider him, you know, a great, you know, great player, but he's obviously one of the best players for the US. But people are treating him as if he was the next Messi in terms of card prices, and it's like, how do we reconcile these things?
Actually, I would say one thing about Pulisic. I would be more afraid of investing. To be fair, but okay, let's start with this. I also don't buy Pulisic, but again, I'm not American, so I don't have any type of connection with him. But I would say one thing: if I was investing in modern, I don't even think Pulisic is the worst buy. For one reason, I also don't think he's great, but I don't think he's the worst, because yes, in terms of talent, is not top 50, top 100 in the world. But for the market that matters the most, he's probably the most important player. So there is that. Long run, will that play out? Maybe, maybe not. I'm not so sure. That's why I'm not investing in Pulisic. But I will be much afraid of... Look, a good example of this is... I forgot the name. The guy that went to Borussia, that was in Salzburg. I believe is Adeyemi.
Adeyemi? Yeah.
Adeyemi. No one is talking about him anymore. He's still a good player, by the way, but no one is talking about him. His start is not getting any type of news. Mukoko at one point was the same thing. I remember when I was entering the hobby 4 years ago, for example, Rashford was the best, was the guy that will be the next. No one cares about Rashford right now. Again, maybe the gold or the 1 of 10, 1 of 5 still sells for a good amount of money. But in general, the market is not there anymore. And in 4 years from now, maybe ADM is the best big thing. Maybe Mbappe is the GOAT. But a lot of the stuff we are seeing right now will be quite different. But I would say one thing, if the market grows, Cruyff is still one of the best players ever. If the market grows, Di Stefano is still one of the best players ever. And same goes even for Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, etc. So just my 2 cents on this conversation, because modern is not even where I invest my money or even a market that I grind a lot to have a strong take. But looking from outside, I think it's fair to say this. You also said old pre-modern and by vintage. I guess we can put two together. Why old pre-modern and by vintage?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's sort of what you just said about, no matter what happens to the market, Cruyff is going to be one of the best players. And I think, you just look at like legacy, right? So it's, Cruyff's legacy is set. He's not alive anymore. He already accomplished whatever he's going to accomplish. And that happens for any player who's, at the end of their career. You can kind of go back in time. I think the difference between pre-modern and vintage for me is just I think vintage is just the scarcity and just how few cards or stickers there are. I think is one point. And then the other thing that I find personally exciting is, trying to find you might see a vintage sticker that comes up. I mean, it's not even a rookie sticker. It'll just be some random, like, Cruyff, for example, will come up on eBay or PWCC, and it's like, there's just none of these. And it's not like there's a bunch sitting in a warehouse somewhere that people haven't graded yet. There's just none of these things in the world. And so kind of trying to track down certain stickers or trying to find certain just rare pieces of some of these GOATs, I think is just personally really exciting. So I think from just a enjoyment standpoint, I get more enjoyment out of that than, some of the pre-modern. But I think pre-modern is probably, at least for me, the market that I probably don't have the best handle on, which is why I know there's a lot there and there's a lot to dig into, which is why I think it's just a hold for me. I would want to dig a little more into it before deciding whether to buy more or sell.
No, yeah, fair point. I would say one thing. I think both markets are biased, to be fair. I like both a lot. I would say if there is, okay, not if there is, if the market keeps growing, I believe demographics will play out amazing for pre-modern because a lot of players like Messi, even Ronaldinho, Cristiano Ronaldo, people will remember. A lot of people will probably hit their financial peak, and those, I suspect, those will be the guys that they will try. I'm not talking about these 3 players, but you get the idea, the general idea of pre-modern. You can put Zidane, Henry, etc. So I think pre-modern have a lot of that, but like you said, and this is a very good point, there is probably more, I would say, true rarity in vintage. But even though this is something I also want to fight a bit, in the sense that pre-modern gets a bad rep, in the sense that people say, oh, pre-modern is to come. And that's a lie, honestly, because it depends a lot. Yes, sometimes the problem with pre-modern is people relate pre-modern with Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi, and that's it. And they see, you know what, Cristiano Ronaldo cars and Messi cars are down. Because of that, maybe pre-modern in terms of rarity is not holding well. Or I don't know. I'm trying to guess what other people think, but I think this is a very fair take that other people can potentially have. But for example, I recently I got graded a Xavi sticker, Panini sticker rookie, That card is insanely difficult to find. I'm talking about it's not the ST sticker, it's actually Panini 19A, which is the number of the card. Man, that card is so difficult to find. I would put that card against almost every vintage card you can think about. And of course, you also have Ibrahimovic Hulk, even Baston, that are also quite difficult to find. French releases in general, for example, Zidane and Henry, are not that easy to find. If you go to specific sets like the Russian versions for Estrelas Europeias, Melhores Equipos de Europa, there is also true rarity in pre-modern. Maybe the Messi market, maybe the Cristiano Ronaldo market are not the best in that front, even though I would disagree to a certain point in the sense that, again, I repeat myself on this, but the ST sticker for Messi is still very low pop. I understand the other cards are a little bit higher for some people taste. But for example, Cristiano Ronaldo is still very low pop in general. I mean, you find much easier Messi rookies than you find Cristiano Ronaldo. So my perspective on this is I completely agree with you that vintage is a buy. Of course, you are also forced to choose a old, so you end up going for pre-modern. And if I had to play the same game as you, my choices will be similar. To be fair, probably the same. But I believe pre-modern is also buy, and like you said, it's probably the market you don't have the best handle, but trust me, pre-modern also have true. When I say true rarity, it's very relevant because true rarity is pop 2 at best, pop 3. Nothing in soccer almost have true rarity. You know that will be very difficult. Even Pelés 57, they are pop 5, pop 6 in the long run. So, but strong rarity, pre-modern also have a lot, and that's the place I see a lot of potentially for pre-modern right now.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And, when you were talking about that, it made me think about when I was a kid, like what players did I watch when I was young and like getting into soccer? And it's a lot of the people you named, Thierry Henry, Ronaldo, R9, obviously Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi. So I think, I've always felt that as people get into the soccer market, they'll come in through modern and ultra modern and start working their way back. And I think for a lot of people who are getting into the market today, when they think about the players that they know, it's going to be, I think, a lot of the pre-modern players, because unless you go back and really do the research, I mean, you've heard people hear of, Maradona and Pele and Cruyff, but unless you're really grinding and doing the research, you might not know about some of the other, top 20, top 50 players of all time that are in more of the vintage, where I think a lot of the pre-modern stars are, we have at least some frame of reference from watching, World Cups or watching the Premier League or the Champions League and things like that.
Yeah, this is a very, very complex topic, to be fair with you. And it's something that I change my opinion almost every day. Okay, maybe nostalgia is something that I need to pay more attention, but I also have this take that it's probably one of the things I believe the most. Nostalgia in general is a bit overrated because that's a sentiment that you have about certain things. But as a person, you change perspective about stuff all the time. I mean, things that I was liking 1 year ago probably is not the same things I like now. That's why I prefer to invest in players that are historical players, because that's a fact that, for example, Pelé, greatness, 1 year from now, my opinion about him in terms of greatness will probably be similar. But if I'm collecting a player because of nostalgia, I don't know, can get a little bit tricky, because I think, you know what, I'm in a different position right now in life. I don't even care collecting about this type of stuff anymore. So I guess you can invest in nostalgia, you can invest in potential with the prospecting, and you also can invest in historical players. But we are very likely in the sense that the players you said, Henry, Ronaldo, yes, we have nostalgia for them, but they're also historical players. So it's almost the sweet spot to be on the market. Again, for specific cards, and this is just a general take, because I also believe a lot in Maradona, Pelé, Cruyff, as you know. So.
Yeah, cool.
All right, so
all right.
I believe is it's your turn. Never mind.
Yeah, my turn. So we talked about just what we thought would be the biggest catalyst for the European market. I think in the US, obviously, lot driven by the men's national team and the talent they have there, but just want to dive in a little deeper about what maybe would move the needle in terms of demand in the European market.
Let me actually flip the question for you. Tell me what you think will actually increase the European market.
So I think it comes down
to just one thing, because I actually think your perspective looking from outside can actually be very, very important.
Yeah, so I mean, I would say my perspective, and this is probably a very naive perspective, just being an American looking from the outside, but I think obviously America, as you mentioned, I think in the US there is a lot of demand in terms of like the hobby, and I'll say the hobby broadly across all sports, but even in soccer there's a lot of demand, and there's obviously a lot of people, and the video that I made a video about like, what if soccer was the #1 sport in the US like it was in Europe, and like what would that do? Because you look in the US and soccer is maybe the 4th most popular sport. So I just think we have this groundswell of, if soccer became popular in the US, it would obviously increase demand broadly in the market. However, when I look at the European market, you have a whole group of collectors and investors, or whatever you want to label people as, that are not only very knowledgeable about soccer as a sport, because it's basically the most popular sport on the continent and has been for forever basically, but then you also have a lot of knowledge more locally about products and about certain players or certain sets and things like that. And so I think the thing for me that is like a big catalyst is like, how do you basically bridge the two, right? Like, how do you basically bridge like the demand in America with the knowledge that comes from Europe, and sort of get the and one of those things might be, and this is kind of why I asked about PSA is, if you have people that are sitting on a lot of these rare stickers, then there's a way for them to get graded. That sort of bridges the gap between, now they're more accessible. Somebody from America who doesn't maybe know as much about specific sets or specific stickers, that might not want to buy a raw sticker off eBay, is like, oh, well, this is PSA graded, so there must be some sort of legitimacy to it. Obviously, you mentioned how that could get a little dicey in terms of, a lot of these ultra modern stickers and stuff. But I think there is this sort of bridge that, as it gets sort of, connected between Europe and the US, I think you can have a lot of, you could basically pair the increase in interest for soccer, and therefore demand for soccer cards and stickers, with the knowledge and just I'll call it like just the inventory that exists in Europe.
Okay, well said. I agree with almost everything, to be fair. And at the end of the day, again, these type of topics, we can have just this topic and make the podcast. It is a very this type of people lately have been saying that I've been saying all the time, this is a complex topic, and I actually have been saying that a lot. But I'm honest. I mean, this is not. I don't want to tell. You know what? If Fanatics puts a lot of money in Europe, things will be fine. I don't think it's just that. I think there is a lot of things. There is the culture. You guys have a much stronger culture for collectibles than us. In other hand, I would say TCGs are giant in Europe. Magic the Gathering is super popular. Yu-Gi-Oh was super popular. Pokemon, same thing. So there is things that we can do to bring people to soccer that may not be so obvious. I really hope Fanatics, PSA, whatever, have people that basically have the vision I'm having right now, to be honest with you, that they understand the potential, but it's just not investing money. There is a lot of education that needs to enter the market. There is a lot of connect the dots, people don't talk about this a lot, but we have a lot of people in the soccer card market that came from Pokemon. And people say, wait, that makes no sense. No, that actually makes a lot of sense if you think about Pokemon ended up exploding more global than the soccer cards. So people in the United Kingdom, in Spain, in Italy, whatever, saw the Logan Paul video, all of the craziness, and they start looking at graded cards. It's like, oh, this is a PSA 10. Oh, but I also know people collect baseball cards. What about soccer? And this is the type of connecting the dots I'm talking about. Everything is related at the end of the day, but there is a lot of people in the market that came from Pokemon. And when people talk about the Pokemon craziness, we end up benefiting with that to a certain level. How much is difficult to tell, to be fair. But yeah, very complex topics. So, but yeah, I believe a lot in Europe. I also believe a lot in Asia. Even South America have potential. So, man, our market is honestly, I would not say perfect, but is the closest thing I can look right now. And I would say one thing: I collect a lot of stuff. I collect Magic, I collect Pokemon. Pokemon not that much as anymore, but I collect Yu-Gi-Oh. I'm even collecting some graded, not graded, I'm sorry, sealed video games that potentially I can get graded. And I would say one thing: nothing is close to soccer in terms of opportunity, in terms of potentially long runs. And people may disagree with me on this, but again, I know my experience at least, and I feel like soccer really have a lot of room to grow. Not saying the other markets don't, because I also believe in alternative markets in general, but soccer is the closest thing I know to perfection in terms of potential, to be fair with you.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I guess this is my turn. Let me see. Question number 3. So what's about your 1K to a PSA 8 Messi 7-on-B's idea that you are actually trying to make reality? And I think this is a good time to invite all the people watching the podcast to check your channel below the video, Instagram, etc. But even more particular, the channel, because I think this is a nice. This is an amazing concept you have, especially for people that look. The reality is, I cannot afford the Messi 7-on-B's PSA 9 all of the sudden, or PSA 8. I need to try to get there, and I think you are doing that in an amazing way, honestly. So that's why I'm saying people should actually check your channel if they want to learn your process. But my question was not even related with that, was more what's next for you. And you even said that maybe Cruyff could be an alternative, but what players in pre-modern, and you can also tell me players in vintage, but what players in pre-modern you have the desire to collect the most in the future, even if you are not collecting right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think all of the players are definitely players I can't afford. I mean, it's like a lot of the ones we talked about: Ronaldinho, Ronaldo, Thierry Henry. And a lot of it is, I think you brought up a good point when we were talking about the pre-modern and the nostalgia, because I think a lot of it is nostalgia. Like, I do find myself, it is hard for me to split between what is a good like investment opportunity, if you want to say, or just like, who do I want to buy? Like, I like to buy players that I like, and I don't buy a lot of players that I just don't like, even if it means I'm probably losing out on potential value. So yeah, I would say like those three, and then you look at their rookies, they're all especially Ronaldinho, especially Henry. I mean, those are not cheap. Those are not cheap at all. And I think the Henry, the one with the Monaco kit with the red border, I think is aesthetically just one of the coolest looking stickers in the hobby. So kind of checks all the boxes there.
Top 5 sticker for me in general, I would say. Could be top 3. Even the Zidane one, I'm not sure if you agree with me, but with the yellow borders, I also Panini Foot had great design at the time. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny because every time I talk with people around my age, and I suspect you are around my age, we all talk about the same players: Ronaldinho, Henry, Ronaldo, maybe Xavi, Iniesta, the players that basically end up being super important for my generation, your generation, etc. So yeah, I guess this is a very easy topic compared with the other ones we end up talking. And let's move on to the other question. I think is your turn.
Yeah. So we talked about one prediction for the soccer card market that you feel most confident about over the next 12 months.
So instead of flipping the question again, my question for you is, do you agree with me that potentially in the next 12 months, 24, whatever, that the vintage card market and the pre-modern, talking about soccer, of course, and pre-modern in terms of collector base can grow, even if the market in general slows down? Do you agree with that, or you have a different perspective?
No, I do agree with that, just because I think, for true collectors, and I think the line between, I think people consider themselves collectors, and there's, some people are investor, there's kind of like gray line between like, oh, I'm an investor versus I'm a collector. I think for the most part, a lot of people are some of each, but I think for people who enjoy the collecting aspect of the hobby, and maybe I would say more importantly, people who can take a longer term time horizon. So somebody that's not trying to make a living flipping cards every year, for example, but somebody who has a confidence in the underlying fundamentals of the soccer card market and is willing to collect now for 10 years, 20 years down the line. I think those types of people, a lot of those people are just collectors because they like to buy cards. I think that those people, that base can increase, because especially in a down market, I think these are the best times to buy and find buying opportunities. And I think that, just as more and more people get into the soccer card hobby, you will have just an increase in that collector base naturally. And then those collectors will, as people get more educated and have a better understanding of vintage and pre-modern, because it is a journey. I think as people have a better understanding of that, that number of people in that base will continue to expand regardless of the macro environment.
Okay, fair. I would agree again. I think that's a very fair take. The thing with pre-modern and vintage is there is almost no way for me to talk nice about them and talk, I would say, bad about modern. But the reality is, and maybe people can explain me this better than my perspective is right now, is, I don't know, I engage a lot with vintage and pre-modern collectors, to be fair, so maybe I'm in my own bubble, and that could be true. To not even trying to say that's not a possibility, because it's a possibility. But every time I see a pre-modern collector, a vintage collector, I kind of feel the passion. I feel people really understand what they have. They understand how important that card is for them. When I look at the modern market, I think that the sentiment is completely different. There is a lot of, I'm buying this for 10, I will sell for 20. Then the way they explain the card is, this is out of 10 and this guy made 2 amazing games. But I think, okay, but do you have a connection with a player? Is that player a historical player? Maybe my brain is completely destroyed with this value investing type of idea that I tend to approach the market, honestly. But I just see much more. Saying real collector is always a weird term, because everyone is a real collector at the end of the day. But people that really care about the market, oh man, there is a lot of people that love to collect Maradona. There is a lot of people that love to collect Cruyff. There is a lot of people that love to collect Zinedine Zidane, Lionel Messi. But Lionel Messi goes into a gray area that you also can collect ultra-modern, but I'm talking more about pre-modern. I just think is a much better market. And I'm saying pre-modern, vintage. Let's call old markets, right? Vintage markets. If you really like this type of stuff, and like you said very well, if you can hold, because it's not like if you buy a Mbappe card, if Mbappe scores another hat-trick, maybe you can flip it for 20%, maybe 2x, who knows? In a vintage card, it's quite more difficult. So
yeah, I think it's interesting. You brought up a good point. I think one thing to keep in mind, at least that I try, at least like that I have experience in is, 5 years ago, if you were buying vintage soccer cards, for example, or pre-modern soccer cards, and you look at the prices that people were paying 5 years ago and what those same cards or stickers cost now, it prices a lot of people out. So, I mean, I would love to, and this is part of the reason why I'm doing the Messi challenge and trying to be so transparent about it, because I suspect that there's a lot of people like me who I would love to buy the Thierry Henry sticker right now, but we're talking like thousands of dollars, and even if you can buy that one, then like Zidane and Cruyff, like there's so many great players that are becoming more and more, I would say, out of people's price range. And that's where I think a lot of the, that, or at least some of the sort of ultra modern flipping, more transactional nature comes in, because one, I think that's where more of like the mainstream market is, just because most people who are coming from other sports, they don't necessarily know these all-time greats. They know Mbappe, they know Topps Chrome, they know all of like the new sets. And so that's where I think there's opportunity to sort of build that investing capital that people can then put into the older cards that, at least for people that may not have the capital just sitting around to just, throw into all the cards that they want to purchase. So I again, like, I think, as you would say, a complex topic that could probably have its own podcast, but yeah, I definitely think there's different types of participants at least in the ultra modern market. I would say I do agree with you 100% on the passionate collector base of the vintage and pre-modern. I think ultra modern is where it gets kind of interesting. Like, you have some people that are just coming from other sports. You have some people that are very much passionate about vintage and pre-modern, but maybe don't have the funds. And so I think it's an interesting market for that reason, or for those reasons.
Yeah, and again, this is I'm making a generalization, but for sure there is some people that probably collect ultra modern and really engage in that market and love the market. But again, I'm free to share my perspective on this, and it's just the way I look at the market. Being honest with you, the thing with ultra modern or modern, the name is whatever. To be fair, is like, my biggest problem is more about prospecting than actually buying modern. What I mean with this, look, you tell me, you know what, Andrea, I'm going to buy a Lewandowski 2017 Topps Chrome Gold. Look, I would say I don't even think that's a bad buy. I think Topps Chrome 2017 will be a potential important set in the modern era. Is the first Topps Chrome. So I would say, you know what, I actually think that you probably have a good entry point right now and maybe plays out well in the future. And same logic goes for Iniesta, Messi. You get the point, right? Same logic goes for other sets like Prism 2014. Of course, that's also a very important set. And when I talk about modern, I'm not even talking about, to be fair, the high end, for example, flawless, stuff like that. That's almost a different market, to be fair. But my biggest problem is if you are buying a Gavi rookie and you think that's a long-term hold. I know a lot of people right now Andre, no one thinks that's a long-term hold. Sadly, there is, because I deal with people like that told me, oh, you know what, the time I bought Rashford, I bought Sancho because people told me these guys will be great, I can hold. You cannot hold, you can hold modern stuff, but you need to be very aware of the risk and know. I don't even know if you can know what you are doing, because you don't control player performance. But my problem with modern is more about prospecting, because again, if you are buying the Messi Gold Select, I don't know. I actually understand that much more than if you are buying the new kid on the block and thinking that you can hold that type of stuff. And I actually, look, I bought a couple of Topps Chrome recently because I knew a collector that was selling a couple of cards, and I think long term they will perform great. Can I be wrong? Of course, but I guess you get my point, right? It is not even that I think modern is, because again, Top Scrum probably have a lot of people collecting right now, or Prism, but it's more about the prospecting world that scares me a bit. And let's be real, there is a lot of people losing money. This goes into another complex topic, that is, there is a lot of people participating in breaks. That's for me is pure gamble. I suspect one day there will be some type of regulation about this. I have nothing against gamble as long as regulated, okay? Because if people want to spend their money, but there is a lot of shady stuff going on sometimes with this breaking stuff that, yeah, forget about basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, but let's move on to a more positive topic, I would say. And this is the question number 4. So is a topic that I believe we already end up sharing good perspective, but we end up talking, for example, about the next catalyst on the market. You said that you believe if the American team performs well, that could be huge for the card market. I agree with you 100%. I think more to modern, to be fair, but even over time, there will be a trickle-down effect to vintage, pre-modern, etc. But that's the biggest catalyst you see in a short, mid-term, or you see other stuff that you want to share?
Yeah. I almost said it as my hot take, and I think I put it in your hot takes channel that I thought the best thing that could happen for the soccer card market is the US men's team winning the World Cup, just in terms of like the popularity and the increase in demand. I think that's one that is, I'll just be clear, I don't think that will happen. I don't think that's super likely to happen, even in 2026. I just think that is something that would absolutely like increase the hype. So that's kind of more of something that's possible, but not something that I necessarily think will happen. Now, if they make a deep run, or if they go to the semifinals, or something, I think the better they do both as a team and then individual players in Europe, I do think that will have an effect on at least the demand in the American market. I think when I think about catalysts, and I can talk a little bit about what I talked about in the video, is there are different types of catalysts. So there's obviously the one we're talking about with the US team kind of changing the entire demand of the market is more of that's kind of like a fundamental catalyst. Like that would change kind of like the entire landscape, and it's sort of hard to plan for those. Some catalysts that I think we can plan for are things related to, whether it be performance or transfers or things like that, right? So you could take the stand that maybe you think Brazil is going to win the World Cup. And if you look at, okay, well, if Brazil wins the World Cup, who is going to, which player or players are going to have the biggest impact in that, and Brazil has a lot of great players that could play a part in that. And so now you're looking at like, okay, is it Neymar? Is it Vinicius Jr.? Is it Anthony? Is it somebody else, right? And then you could take the stand that, okay, I'm going to buy some of their cards because I think they're going to win the World Cup. And maybe Neymar's an example where he's going to win a World Cup, and that's going to be part of his legacy, and that's going to cement him as, I don't know, a modern GOAT or whatever you want to say. And maybe that's like a take that somebody could have. I think
sure.
That's a very realistic catalyst. Now, the question that you have to ask there is any of that already priced into the expectations for Neymar or for the Brazilian team? And I would say, at least to some extent, yes, just given that, Neymar is a pretty visible player, and the Brazilian team, is one of the favorites to win the World Cup. So, I mean, we can dive in, deeper here, but there's sort of like these short-term performance-based catalysts that are kind of always happening. There is the big catalyst that I think could change the market, and then there's obviously other types of catalysts too.
No, for sure. I also think fanatics will be important. I mean, if you see interviews from Josh Luber, and I believe Josh Luber is not working there anymore, but you get the point that the idea that fanatics had is all about international getting collectors from regions, in different regions, because let's be real, the American market of course can grow, but the European market, the Asian market can grow even more in terms of percentage. I think that's quite obvious. So soccer is probably one of the best markets for them. I mean, do not get much better than soccer, right? Of course, even markets like I don't know, Marvel, Star Wars, etc., also have that international appeal. But in terms of sports, I mean, it's soccer, F1, maybe tennis, but soccer being the main one, I would say. So, no, yeah, great topic to be fair. And your video on this was actually quite good. So,
Thank you. Yeah.
um,
All right, let's move on to this next one. So if you were forced to sell one of your Grail cards in your collection, what would it be and why? You mentioned the Ronaldinho sticker that you only have one copy of, so would love to dive deeper into that.
yeah, probably would be a duplicated because my long run idea or goal, no, not idea. My long run goal is when I can have. To be fair, I'm very far from that. But when I can have just one copy of one and have basically the other cards I want, I will do it. I don't expect to get any type of great financial return with my collection. I just hope I don't lose money. To be fair, of course, as a value investor, I also speculate in the. I'm being a little bit ironic because, of course, I also believe in my collection going up. But most important is actually having certain goals achieved, and most of my goals are not related with money in my collection, are more related with, you know what, I don't have a Leaf Abolish yet. I would love one day to have one. There is other cards for Pelé that I would love to have one day. I'm very far from that. Yes, but I mean, at the end of the day, that's what motivates me. That's what motivates you and people watching. Maybe you are chasing Messi. I was chasing Messi 4 years ago, but after that, I can guarantee you there will be another goal in your collecting journey. And maybe you even sell the Messi and go to a different thing. That's also a possibility because collecting is about that. Is always changing perspective, is always having new goals, and that's a lot of fun. I sell stuff quite a lot to be fair, but 99% of the money that I make from selling cards, I buy more cards. So it's not even that I'm taking money off the hobby. Actually, quite the opposite, to be fair. So yeah, that's basically my take on this. I would sell the Ronaldinho. But if I was probably in a better position, I would sell a duplicated like Maradona 77 disc and buy other things.
Nice. Really quick, just related question. When you think about, you set goals of like you want to get certain cards or certain stickers of players, do you have grades in mind, or is it for you like a PSA 1, you at least have one and then you sort of work your way up from there? Like, is it more important to get a copy, or is it more important to get like a copy in a specific grade?
Depends a lot, honestly. Well, first of all, I want the card. So I guess I'm answering automatic. First of all, does not matter if it's a PSA 1 or a PSA 7. I want the card. For me, that's very important as a collector. As an investor, this is probably even a dumb take, honestly, because maybe save and buy a better grade. But as a collector, I have to be honest, I want to have the card first of all. But I would say this. I've been focusing more through rarity lately. For example, the Xavi I got, I can guarantee you go to eBay. Actually, there is one for sale, but is very overpriced. You go to Spain, you might find one, but will be expensive. But basically, the type of stuff that is really, really difficult to find. Yes, you can tell me if you get a 9 or an 8, will sell for more in the future. Well, of course, but even in a 7, a 6, I believe that will hold well, even in terms of with this idea of value investing. Even a lower grade can be amazing. Of course, certain cards, and talking about your goal, yes, I believe you should target Messi everyone is more in a grade like an 8, like a 9, because that card is more condition rarity than for example, my Xavi. Yes, there is always condition rarity, no matter even if you are talking about true rarity, there is also condition rarity. But you get my point. I mean, for my Xavi, well, to be very, is a much cheaper card. But I mean, a 5, a 6, a 7 is important, but is not as important as you getting an 8 versus getting a 6. So
Yeah.
That's basically my perspective. But as a collector, get the card first. Honestly, probably as an investor, don't ignore this take as a collector. And first of all, I'm a collector, and I've been even thinking more and more about this because my channel, I know, is very related with the financial side of the market, but sometimes at night I think, man, I'm more a collector than I'm a real investor. So there is that. Question number 5 for you was unpopular opinion. So expand a little bit more on that.
Yeah. So so I said that I think the Mosaic Genesis parallels are one of the most underrated. I mean, and I guess for context, you think of like Topps Chrome, right? There's like 50 parallels, right? You have the gold, you have the red, you have like all the classic ones. There's speckle, refractor, there's all sorts of things. So Mosaic has, their own parallels as well. One of the parallels that only comes in retail, so you can only buy it in, like Walmart or Target, or like you can't buy it like in a hobby box off Panini's website, is called the Genesis parallel. And it basically looks, maybe I can send you a picture of it that you can include in the video, but it basically looks like it's kind of got like a black background and almost looks like almost like outer space, or kind of like almost like a black hole type thing. They're really cool looking, and they were very popular in American football and basketball, the initial Mosaic releases. And I was looking, they're unnumbered too, which I think is another reason why they maybe aren't as popular, because people are like, well, what's the print run, right? So if you look back on PSA Pop reports for these Genesis parallels for other sports, and look at the most popular players in those sports, total graded, I think people have estimated around like 200 or 250 print run, which is not, I mean, we're talking about vintage and pre-modern. 250 is not exactly small, but
I'm actually
for ultra modern.
I'm actually seeing the parallel you are talking about. Yeah, I was aware, but I was not related with the name.
Got it. Yeah. So I guess what I'm getting at is, I think, when we look back, and it all depends on the print runs, right? Like if we're assuming that Mosaic print runs for soccer are on par with what they are for football or basketball, I would guess that they're not, but maybe they could be in the next few years. So we'll have to obviously monitor the print runs. But I do think that, when you think about like Cristiano Ronaldo's first, Genesis for the Mosaic Euro set, or, some of these higher sought after rookies, or, other, GOAT type players, it'll be interesting to see how many of these there are, because I suspect that they're kind of slept on. And I think part of it is maybe because people aren't aware and they're not, a hobby parallel. And
no financial advice. Let's put that.
Yeah, not financial. Yeah, sorry. None of this is financial advice. This is just like stuff that I think about, that I think is interesting to dive into the numbers on. I'm not telling anybody to buy them. I think they're really cool looking. And these are the types of things in any market, but the soccer card market, where, when people are looking at one shiny thing, I like to kind of think about like, well, what are the other shiny things that maybe people aren't looking at? And this is just one of them that I think deserve at least more attention than they get. But by no means am I trying to pump any Genesis.
No, I was joking, of course, but I mean, I don't know, because it's not my market. But you make good points. So, and there is a lot of people watching the channel that collects modern. So, yeah, I think you made a great point for this. I have no idea if it's a hot take or not, to be fair with you, but I appreciate.
I think just like to put a bow on that, I looked at like Mbappe and Ronaldo, their Euro, the Mosaic did like a Euro 2020 set. And I think there's like single digit PSA 10s for some of these Genesis parallels. So again, it'll be interesting to see how that number increases over time as more are opened and graded and things like that. But yeah, we'll see.
No, fair. So the last question was for me and was about the impact of PSA in Europe, in the United Kingdom region. Difficult question again, complex topic. My point was basically that it will depend how PSI will attack the market. And to be fair, in my perspective, maybe short term and mid term, the hype will be so big that they don't even need to educate the market that much. But to stay alive, I believe they need to educate the market, to try to find to open more doors in Europe, if that makes sense. The bad side about this, so this could also be an impact, could be stickers with low rarity, like Merlin stickers, and maybe PSA 10s, PSA 9s will still be fine, but especially mid-grade, stuff like that, I think people should be concerned. Even vintage, there is a lot of vintage collectors in the United Kingdom that don't grade. Maybe right now this could be an opportunity. Same goes for Italy, to be fair, and other regions, but these two, I believe, are quite big. Overall, I think this will be an amazing thing for us. I'm saying for us, not only for Europeans, for the entire soccer card market, because our market is unique. I mean, it's all about diversity, right? Think about this. What market do you have that is so fun to collect? I mean, if you want to collect Cristiano Ronaldo cards, you need to understand the Portuguese almost culture. You need to understand what is, okay, the releases on this country was like this. If you like to collect Maradona, okay, but why is a POG the rookie card for Maradona? Well, guess what? At the time, that was the way they ended up doing stuff. So I think our market is all about the diversity, and PSA in Europe can increase that even more.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I think that's everything. Hope you enjoyed. I had a lot of fun. This is 1 hour and 30 minutes. Anything you want to say to my viewers, Seth, just to finish, basically?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to thank you again for having me on. Always love talking about this stuff, and really appreciate the different perspectives that that we're able to have and kind of talk about the same topic from different lenses. I think that always makes for a meaningful discussion. Yeah, I think to the viewers, come check out the channel. Like I said, it's hopefully something a little bit different than maybe is out there. And, my goal is really just to try and be as transparent as possible, both in my journey, but also just in the thought process, with the goal that I don't know everything. And I'm sort of here learning as I go and trying to share some of those learnings with anyone who wants to join. So yeah, come check it out. And yeah, would love to have you over there.
No, for sure. My pleasure again. I really enjoyed the talk, and we will do it again. So yeah, thank you so much, and bye.